Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for joining Cuyahoga County's forecast of purchasing and contracting opportunities. Today, we're going to go over the county's contracting and forecast for the next 24-month period. The agenda for today will include background information on what led to the county creating the forecast. We're also going to hear perspective from one of our larger procurement purchasing departments, from the Department of HHS. We also plan to hear from the Department of Information and Technology. And then finally, we'll go over some tips on how to use the information so that you can pursue business opportunities with the county. Again, my name is Lenora Lockett. I'm the interim director of the Department of Equity and Inclusion. The Department of Equity and Inclusion is a newly created department. It was approved by County Council on May 25th, 2021. It is part of the Fiscal Office. The Fiscal Office is led by the Fiscal Officer, Michael Chambers. The Fiscal Office is under the authority of the County Executive, Armin Budish. Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives related to contracting and purchasing can be grouped into two categories. First, there's race and gender neutral initiatives. These are initiatives that basically improve access and opportunities for all. And based on that inclusion for all, there's a good opportunity for small businesses, minority businesses, and women-owned businesses to also have increased participation. Then there are race and gender conscious initiatives. Race and gender conscious initiatives must be supported by a legally defensible disparity study, and it must be narrowly tailored to the findings and recommendations from that disparity study. Under the new form of government, Cuyahoga County has done two disparity studies. First, there was a disparity study done in 2014 that had race and gender neutral initiatives that were recommended and limited race and gender conscious initiatives that were recommended. Because you want to make sure that your programs are based on current data and not stale data, the county has made a commitment to do a disparity study every 5 years to make sure we look at our most recent contracting and purchasing opportunities to determine whether or not there's what programs and recommendations are viable to increase or improve inclusion and diversity in our contracting. So our most recent disparity study was the 2020 disparity study. It included 8 recommendations that we are now in the process of developing and implementing. The first recommendation was for more detailed MBE, WBE subcontractor goals, and based on those goals, having a more definitive good faith effort requirements as far as meeting those goals. The second recommendation was for enhanced contract compliance. The third recommendation was for increased staffing and resources so that the county can better implement those recommendations and this MBE, WBE programs. That's augmented by the need for staff training to make sure not only do we increase staff, but that we also are aware and trained of the best practices on implementing those initiatives. The fifth recommendation was for increased utilization of the Small Business Set-Aside program. The Small Business Set-Aside program is a program where county certified small businesses compete against each other for that contract or purchasing award. As part of the 2014 disparity study, that was one of the recommendations, and it was initiated as a pilot within the Department of Public Works. Based on the results of that pilot and the data from the most recent 5-year period, the recommendation is to increase that small business set-aside program to beyond the Department of Public Works. Recommendation number 6 is the contract forecast, which is what we're going to talk about today. It's basically about giving advance notice about what the county plans to purchase within the upcoming period to give more advance notice to entities that may not be used to dealing with the county, but they can have information on in advance before we post for the actual responses and bids and RFPs and RFQs. They have advance notice, they can be better prepared to make a submission and respond. The 7th recommendation was for coordinated vendor outreach. Again, we want to make sure that now that we provide the information that we're making sure that the vendors who could respond to that information are aware of those opportunities. And final recommendation is to reform our data infrastructure. As part of making that commitment to do a disparity study every 5 years, we want to make sure that we are collecting the data in a form that gives the best efficient a process for it to be efficiently and effectively analyzed. As I stated, the disparity study recommendations were issued in the fall of 2020 when the report was submitted. And on January 7, 2021, County Executive Armin Budish issued 4 executive orders that are in alignment with those recommendations. Executive Order 1 deals with specifically a directive to make those contract by contract goal setting and that it be narrowly tailored for each contract, and providing definitive criteria on how we're going to analyze whether or not vendors made a good faith effort to meet those goals. It also included supported and aligned with the recommendation to make sure that we start collecting data so that we have the data that we need to effectively and efficiently analyze how we've been our efforts at diversity and inclusion as far as contracting goes. Then there's Executive Order number 2, which deals with the contract forecast, which is the topic for today. They made a direct requirement that we would post our 24-month purchasing forecast and any annually reoccurring purchases. In addition, it also made the requirement that when we do the actual advertisement and solicitation, that those items are posted for 30 days. Right now, the Ohio Revised Code for bids over 50,000 requires a 15-day posting. And for RFPs and RFQs, the requirement is for 22 days. So it extended those periods, again, to provide better opportunities for those vendors in general, but especially for small businesses and MBEs and WBEs to have that longer period where they can submit bids and responses in response to our RFPs, RFBs, and RFQs. Executive Order number 3 related to increasing outreach and training on the program, and also to fortify the program to include all the recommendations from the current study and a prior study. And finally, the Executive Order number 4 deals with the recommendation to increase and expand the use of the Small Business Set-Aside program. So those were the disparity study and executive orders led to the creation of the contracting and purchasing forecast. It took a lot of work from the Department of Equity and Inclusion and all 30 plus departments of Cuyahoga County, gathering up and providing information on what they plan to purchase over the next 24 months. The departments are key because they are the users and the majority of the goods and services that are going to be procured, and they're going to be used by them to carry out their independent missions. That each department has specific missions, and there's a variety of missions that the county is taking care of throughout the organization. So it takes a partnership between the current Department of Equity and Inclusion and each of the user departments to provide a complete and accurate forecast. The forecast enhances competition by helping vendors learn about potential prime contract opportunities early in the process. As I stated, there's now, effective July 1st, where reasonably possible, we will post for the actual responses, RFPs, bids, and RFQs, responses to those for 30 days. However, this gives longer advance notice. So if you want to team up or do research on the upcoming opportunity, that gives a better opportunity for more businesses to feel comfortable and confident about responding. The forecast will provide details on contracting and purchasing opportunities for a 24-month period. We issued the first forecast on June 30th by the July 1st deadline that was in the executive order. It will be updated semi-annually, with versions being posted by January 1st and July 1st of each year. While the forecast is our planned purchasing, we still want to emphasize that for those actual procurements, you still need to monitor the Cuyahoga County purchasing website so that when we actually advertise for those items in the purchasing forecast, that you can get the specific details for that transaction or that bid, that RFP, RFQ. Those packets will provide the details on deadlines for submissions, what are the requirements for submission. So you'll still need to make sure, based on the forecast, you'll have a window of opportunity when we're planning on doing those advertisements, but you'll need to monitor the county's website for the actual advertisement. And also, as part of our transition with the new countywide enterprise ERP system, we have a new supplier portal system. Our prior system used to be BySpeed. We now use the Enforce system, and the Enforce supplier portal is where all vendors should register so that you can submit responses to our bids, RFPs and RFQs, and even our informal bids. And also, when you register, that's when you'll receive notices about bids and opportunities that match your company's goods and services. As part of the collection of the data for the contracting and purchasing forecast, we also use it as an opportunity to evaluate those purchases and transactions to determine if they met the criteria to be a viable small business set-aside transaction. When the SB set-aside program was initiated back in 2016, criteria was submitted in response to the county code that detailed what criteria was going to be used to determine which procurements would be small business set-asides. Again, the small business set-aside program is when county certified small businesses will compete against each other for that contract award. As such, we want to make sure, because it's small business set-asides, we want to make sure that the criteria made sure that the item was something that was feasible and competitive. So we wanted to make sure that there are a lot of county certified SBEs that could compete for that item, and also that there would be a reasonable item for that vendor to secure and proceed and implement. So first, we want to look at the funding source requirements and any restrictions thereof. Cowgate County leverages a lot of our own sources with external sources, federal funds, grant funds. As such, when you leverage and use external funding sources, you must make sure that you meet those requirements. So again, we must make sure that it's not just whether or not the criteria, it looks like a good transaction. We want to make sure that there are no funding source or requirements or restrictions that would preclude that. Secondly, we want to look at the scope of work. We want to make sure that the scope of work for that transaction is typical of the industry in size and scope, that is simpler or of typical complexity. And we want to make sure that we have typical standard delivery requirements and that there's a typical performance period. Again, we want to make sure that we're not providing a small business competing against a very complex transaction. We also want to make sure that it's a competitive environment, because it's an opportunity for county certified small businesses to compete against each other and get experience with dealing with the county procurement process. So you want to make sure that you still have adequate competition. And finally, we want to make sure that performance bond and insurance requirements are available for that the insurance, the performance bond requirements are not onerous. We know that that's one of the hurdles that small businesses, minority business, and women businesses have to deal with is with our insurance requirements. So we want to make sure that when we set aside a transaction for a small business set aside item, that the insurance requirements are typical or less onerous than our standard requirements. As I stated, Cuyahoga County has 30 plus departments and agencies that have 30 plus different missions and goals. Each county agency and department are able to utilize a variety of procurement methods, and they purchase a broad range of goods and services from a variety of types of vendors. Today, we're going to have two departments, very large procurement departments, provide a brief overview of their procurement profile just to give you an idea of what their needs are, what their missions are, and how they fit into the procurement system, and also so that you can get an idea of the broadness of the variety that the county has. First, we have up is the Department of Health and Human Services, which is a significant department, has several smaller departments. We're honored to have the director, David Merriman, and to also have Paul Porter, who is the administrator for the contracting, for the administration of the contracts and performance division. I'm sorry if I jumbled that. Let me start over. Paul Porter is the administrator for the division of contract administration and performance. So I'm going to stop sharing because my understanding that they have a PowerPoint, and I appreciate them taking time out today to give us their insight, their perspective on their department.
Good morning, Lenora. First, thank you very much for including us at this stage. We're very honored and grateful for the opportunity to share more information about the Department of Health and Human Services. As you introduced, my name is David Merriman. I am the director of the Department of Health and Human Services, and I'll be turning the presentation over to Paul in a few minutes here. If I can, I'm going to go ahead and switch to our PowerPoint, and I think I'll give it a second to make sure it's up. Let's see if is it showing?
Yep.
All right. So, Lenora, what I'd like to do is I'm going to start with just an overview of the Department of Health and Human Services, and then I'm going to ask Paul to speak specifically to how the Department of Human Services is contracting with the community. What I would want folks to understand is that the DHHS is one of the largest departments in all of the county, if not the largest, and that the breadth of our services span, in essence, prenatal all the way to death. We serve residents at every stage of their life, and we provide many life-saving, many critical services. These services are generally required by the federal government and funded by the federal government. And I think for any potential partner, we'd want to just really underscore the role of having federal funds and the requirements for reporting as well as following federal procedure. What I have before you is the general structure of the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as our mission statement. And this and the next slide information is all available online. We try to have as much of our information posted as possible. And each of the departments listed here have pages where you can learn more about the services they provide. This is in essence about 2,400 staff and around probably a $250 to $300 million budget. And we provide services within our buildings, and we provide services in the community. And our general mission of transforming lives at every stage and through collaboration, innovation, and services is really important to us. And I think this concept of how we connect with people is really changing, and it's extremely timely given the presentation that you just made, as I think we all have recognized the need for change. So we do have formal goals as well as a strategic plan that we're working within, but I'm going to state the obvious. This plan did not anticipate COVID, and it was written at a time when we were simply responding to both internal desire for us to improve services, as well as a change in community expectations and an awareness of opportunities at the federal level. And I think that the three basic areas that we try to focus on really speaks about residents' abilities to get access from services, our ability to meet their specific needs and to prevent problems when possible, and to do that through collaboration and modernization, and then also really trying to focus much more intently on achieving outcomes, not just providing services. And I can share that there is a lot of work done to implement these goals, and there's also a track record within our department for pursuing strategies that address disproportionality and racial disparity. So this is something we take extremely seriously. We've invested a lot of time and energy on our own to be responsive to the executive orders that you've just shared. And it's something that we don't feel that we are where we want to be yet. We're working on it. We're committed to it. We're making changes, but we have much more work to come. And we're extremely excited to be working with the community and to be partnering to address these the challenges of today. Just before I turn it to Paul, I do want to just recognize I am the chair of the county's Equity Commission. And I feel like the work of the Equity Commission and the work that Arvin laid out in those executive orders to address disparity in our community and injustice in our community is something that is natural for the Department of Health and Human Services. And at the same time, we're acutely aware that our true ability to impact the issues of race really is being developed, and our best services are to come. So Paul, if I can ask you to move us forward talking in specifics, I'll be your clicker, so let me know as you want to move to the next slide.
Perfect. Thank you very much, David. And David indicated a lot of kind of the broad brush strokes of health and human services. I'm going to talk about how those things align with our actual contracting process. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about are typical goods or services that our department procures. As David mentioned, our department's oriented towards human services and social services, and those include things like foster care, senior services, adoption placements, employment screenings, operation of homeless shelters, preschool and pre-kindergarten care, transportation, re-entry services, and the list could go on and on from there. It's basically services that are oriented to helping individuals throughout our community, really from birth to services oriented towards elders. We also do procure some goods occasionally, and those are typically goods that are focused on the provision of the services that I just discussed. Those include things like computer equipment for HHS staff members, latex gloves or uniforms for home health aides, office supplies as needed, and then building maintenance and cleaning, because the Department of Health and Human Services is based at many buildings throughout the county. We also have contracts for software and data management services across multiple divisions. And then we have some smaller, less common contracts for things like training services for different teams or departments, advertisement for services or programs that Health and Human Services offers, and then occasional events like conferences and forums. Again, I listed those as less common because we just don't do those as frequently as the other general contracts that we have. We also kind of listed from most common to rare the type of procurement methods that we use. So I would say that most often the procurements that are issued by the Department of Health and Human Services are formal requests for proposal and then informal RFPs or requests for bid. Less commonly, we've done some requests for qualifications, formal RFQs, and then alternative procurements and exemptions. It's rare that we would do something like a formal bid where we're only evaluating the price of the service offered by the vendor. We typically do RFPs and RFQs because those methods allow us to examine kind of the entire proposal and see whether what the vendor is proposing to deliver meets our needs. Where if we do something like formal requests for bid, we're really locked in to accept whatever the lowest price is, even if it might not necessarily meet the needs of what we're looking for with that program. We also very rarely do informal RFQs. When we've done RFQs, those have been issued on a formal basis. So typically for purchases above $50,000. David, you can go ahead and advance the slide. So when we look at the funding sources of the purchases and contracts that HHS has, I again listed most common to rare. Frequently, we do contracts that have a mix of federal funds and HHS levy funds because most federal funding sources require a local match. For instance, our DCFS contracts and CJFS contracts tend to be more heavily federally funded, requiring an HHS levy match, while the Division of Senior and Adult Services is an example of a division that has, contracts that are geared more heavily towards levy funding. Grant funding is common for some of our Office of Homeless Services and Office of Reentry contracts. In particular, federal grants are the most frequent type of grant funding that we use. It's very rare for HHS contracts to utilize general fund dollars. Most of what we put out is federal, levy, or grant funds in that order. And as I mentioned above, contracts where a match is required usually have federal funding, and then we accomplish the match with HHS levy funding. Typical vendors that we work with, so vendors that we either enter into contracts with or who respond to our procurements, are most commonly nonprofit entities. We also work with some for-profit entities. Mostly those are operating in the social services space. So I mentioned that we work with some software companies, for instance, on data management. A lot of those tend to be for-profit rather than nonprofit. We do have contracts with municipalities and school districts, and those include some of our contracts like senior services, the universal pre-K contracts, and then some of our FCFC contracts as well. A small portion of our vendors are consultants, and those are typically sought on an as-needed basis rather than an ongoing basis. So for instance, if we needed to bring in a consultant to help design a program or somebody to help us with our strategic planning process. And I wanted to note that many of our vendors work across multiple HHS divisions. So we have vendors that provide services for children and family services, job and family services, and senior and adult services within separate departments of their own agency. So, a lot of our vendors, again, have multiple specializations, not just targeted towards one area. David, you could advance the slide now. Some of our biggest contracts are master agreements that engage a variety of vendors. Those include our Universal Pre-K program, the Community Social Services program, out-of-home care for Division of Children and Family Services, and the Options for Independent Living program through the Division of Senior and Adult Services. All of those that I just listed were all RFP'd out within the past couple of months. So the next opportunities for those big ones will likely occur 3 years from now, because we've been engaging in multi-year agreements where possible, sometimes as either a multi-year contract, sometimes as a 1-year contract with options for extension for a second or third year. RFP work schedules.
Paul, if I could.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to that is, we are always looking for out-of-home care partner organizations.
Yes.
So, and that includes and is especially targeted to residential service providers for the Division of Children and Family Services. So if vendors are viewing this, or if there are entities that are looking to develop business, it's a standing need for us. There is a great demand for both families that would be willing to receive placements of children in foster care, group homes, and most especially out-of-home care. I think if entities are interested in that business, they should contact the Division of Children and Family Services, and we have resource managers available to consider that, and we have the ability to amend contracts to add additional providers in.
Sure. Thank you for following up on that, David. And I would say for some of our other contracts, we have periodically added vendors when there's a need for additional capacity. What vendors have done in the past when they've reached out to get notification of bid opportunities or solicitations, we typically take down all the contact information for that vendor and then include them in either our next round of procurement, or as you indicated, try to add them to the contract at that time through an amendment. As I was mentioning, our RFP work schedules clearly identify the contract term that are associated with that particular agreement. So if you're looking at an RFP that we issue, it would clearly state whether it's a multi-year agreement, whether it's an agreement with option years, or whether it's a single-year agreement. I will note that the Office of Homeless Services and Office of Reentry are the two teams within HHS that are likely to have the most forthcoming RFPs over the course of the next several months. That includes a master RFP for homeless services that combines multiple services that were previously issued under their own separate RFPs. So where we might have had one RFP issued for a single homeless shelter in the past, in order to make it easier for respondents to respond to the RFPs, we're trying to combine multiple services into one RFP. As it will be laid out in that RFP, you don't have to respond to all 5 services, for instance. Your proposal can indicate what specific service you're proposing to deliver. We've had success doing similar master RFPs that contain multiple services for both the Community Social Services Program and the Options for Independent Living Program. I think this is going to, as I said, make it easier for not just the vendors who are responding, but also for us as a department to enter into those contracts so we can kind of combine our efforts instead of pursuing multiple separate RFPs, which can be fairly time consuming. David, do you have anything else that you'd like to add regarding our specific process at all?
I do not. I just would I would like to recognize that the Department of Contract Administration and Performance is generally the lead point of contact for all DHHS contracting work. Paul and his team do an outstanding job of managing the process. I think we have to recognize that there is bureaucracy involved with contracting with government, and Paul's team is professionalized to be able to respond and to manage those processes. I think the last thing that I would like to just recognize is who we are and what we do is changing. I think change is natural. We do have certain mandates that we must meet with the federal government and with the state. And so there is an element of our work that is focused on compliance, but increasingly our goal is to look for innovative solutions that achieve compliance while also delivering outcomes and delivering significant impact. So Lenora, unless you have other questions, I'm sorry, Paul, you're going to add something?
Yes, if I could just tack on at the end, David, with this move towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, the last several RFPs that we've sent out, we've included, particularly targeted to nonprofit entities, forms that they need to fill out that indicate kind of some diversity factors about their board membership, for instance, as well as their overall staffing composition. Those have been non-scored forms, so it's not making or breaking an agency's chance at doing business with the county. But I think that's something that our team has tried to do to at least start collecting data. One thing that we've noticed is it's easier with like a for-profit business to determine, is this a minority-owned business? Is it a woman-owned business? It's harder to do that when you're talking about nonprofit entities, which make up the bulk of our vendors. So we're trying to do what we can to identify either who's working for those agencies, who are the decision makers on the board, and in some cases, we've given scoring preference on proposals that are delivering services in specific underserved neighborhoods, because that's another area where we can help the county's dollars in areas that have maybe had, either a lack of investment or disinvestment over the years. Thank you.
Lenora, thanks a lot for allowing us this opportunity to present. We'll turn it back to you unless you have other questions.
No, that was great. Awesome presentation. Thank you for agreeing and providing details on your department, your significant and broad mission, and also providing good details on your procurement profile so that vendors and the external world understands your commitment to equity and to providing the goods and services that provide the safety net for a broad range of people in our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Lenora.
Thank you.
So we also had, let me start sharing my computer, the Department of Information Technology. I see Andy Moles is on. He's still muted. I know he was dealing with an issue. Are you able to proceed, Andy, with the presentation on the Department of Information Technology?
I'm going to plead that I'm not going to have a presentation professional as HHS has presented. That was a very good presentation, and unfortunately, I'm going to possibly share a few things that may represent some of the things that we do as an IT department, and talk about our purchasing and the way we go about forecasting for the future. So, the first things first, I think one of the things I wanted to talk about is our goals. I mean, as an IT department, our main goal and objective as an IT is to take care of close to 36, possibly 40 sites, agencies, executive, non-executive offices throughout the county, and all the personnel that work there. So connectivity, application-based, all of the systems that they need to have available to them on a daily basis, we support. So I just wanted to bring that up because it kind of gets a little ingrained once you start thinking about purchasing and how we go about doing that. I wanted to break it up into a couple of different segments, first of all, because each one's a little bit different. So, of course, we got to look at software, application-based. So applications are driven, and there's quite a few. There's a variety of applications that some are standards based on our list, and some are not. Some are very sole sourced when it comes to various agencies that they use. And then we talk about hardware. And hardware is broken up in at least two categories. One, it would be for desktop end user experience equipment, which would be their laptops, desktops, peripheral devices like fax machines, so on and so forth, as an example. And then you have your network hardware. So there's network devices in every building that we have to maintain and purchase and support daily, monthly, weekly, monthly, yearly, that is usually amortized within a 5-year increments. So we have to keep an eye on that because as the equipment gets older, of course, we have to go out and we normally do a RFP for those. Sometimes we do we do an RFP, we do an RFQ, and sometimes we even do, depending on the situation, do an RFI. So that's from that perspective, from the WAN. Then you talk about our servers. So we have hardware that we have to procure and keep up and maintain and support, again, on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, yearly. So that does have usually a 5 to 7 year amortization of length of service. Technology, unfortunately, is like it's a moving target. Software has a lifespan, hardware has a lifespan, so we have to continually look at that and continually look at the vendors that actually support that, because not all the vendors in certain areas will either exist at that time or they may resell it to another vendor. So we have to keep that in the back of our heads when we go out for our purchasing and requests. So then we talk about WAN hardware. So we have hardware existing out there in every one of our buildings that support connectivity to the internet. to their file servers, to their storage and Microsoft. So all of that WAN equipment, again, goes through that scrutiny of amortization of 5 years. So we consistently have to look at that equipment, that age, that life, that expectancy, and forecast out, further to make sure that one, it doesn't go out of date, and two, whether or not it's meeting the needs of the customers, which are basically the county personnel. And then we have to kind of really look at the broad scale of things. We have 2 data centers. So for redundancy, we have a data center in Cleveland at the Blue Bridge facility at 1255 Sterling, which has our internet connections, our security, cybersecurity equipment, additional web services to support the county. And then we have another data center located in Columbus, Ohio, at the state location that services our mainframe, which services our fiscal, as well as storage, which is a critical need for our users that store a lot of documentations. So we have a variety of servers down there. So we have to continually renew these contracts, either through a competitive process, whether it's RFP, sole source. At this present time, we've been utilizing these 2 services for quite some time, and because of their location, the cost structure that was provided, we were, basically those were, I hate to use sole source, but they were locations that were there, that were cost effective, that we continued to use and renew on a yearly basis. So we, the procurement process for us is consistent and it's ongoing. We have multitude of contracts that we, from a diversity standpoint, we RFP, we look for the best. Depending on the situation, we may do an RFQ for that. We also have contracts with our current WAN providers, because the county's made up in different 3 different segments. One, we have what they call an MPLS backbone, or a circuits provided by a vendor, which we RFP'd about 3 years ago. So that basically provides connectivity for every site that we have. I'm going to share out my screen just to show you the volume of locations that we have, and kind of broken out. Can everybody see that?
It's starting. Yes, now I can see it.
So these are the sites that we actually currently support, as well as shared services that we have out there in regards to providing services as, for example, phones. We've been supporting Mayfield Village for about 10 years now for their phones for the entire city. So we have connectivity, we support their phones. We've been doing that for quite some time. But from a county perspective, you're looking at least 41 sites that we either maintain by fiber, which is another area of contracting, purchasing, and again, we have our network with AT&T, which provides the connectivity between all the sites. So they're kind of broken out, which ones are actually on AT&T versus which ones are on fiber. So we have a fiber contract with Spectrum that we had previously bid out. They were the ones kind of a proprietary. The county actually owns the county fiber ring, so Spectrum helps support that ongoing in case there's a break or a cut within the fiber. They will go out there and fix it. And then we have internal fiber within the buildings that we have as well to support. So it's, as you can see, out of 41 sites, and that's, that's including, we support voice for the Health and Human Services, which has been going on for the last probably 10 to 12 years. So there's a lot that we do and a lot that we purchase, but we, depending on the services needed, we will definitely go out and do an RFP. Again, in certain situations, they may be a sole source vendor and product that we need based on the application. So we have to, be very flexible in regards to, how we go about doing it and basically delineate, between vendors and products and applications. So it's very, it's very complex when it comes down to it, trying to support and purchase and do RFPs across the board, because we deal with a variety of vendors in a variety of different ways. So I'm hoping that I'm kind of giving you a good taste of what we have in front of us and what we do on a daily basis. I apologize for not being having a little bit more presentation and more bullet points to go off of, but I kind of wanted to kind of give you a general overview of what we have in front of us and what we deal with on a daily basis.
That sounds great. Thank you, Andy. That was a good profile for the Department of Information Technology. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to provide a perspective from the Department of IT on the procurement process and what your department, your needs, your mission and goals, and what type of vendors that you use to help carry out your mission and what process you use. Thank you very much. So again, as I mentioned, I'm going to go back to the presentation. 1 second. So again, I want to thank both Department of Health and Human Services and Department of Information Technology for providing information and details on their mission and goals, how they use the procurement process to buy goods and services to help them carry out their mission and goals. And based on that process and funding and the other factors that impact their procurement process, detailing for the audience what processes they tend to use, RFPs and RFQs, and also what type of vendors they tend to use for their, when they make selections for their contracts and purchases. Again, there are 30 plus county departments and agencies with 30 plus additional missions and goals. So they're gonna, again, be buying a variety of different goods and services and using a variety of types of vendors based on their needs and services. So I definitely appreciate those two departments, HHS and IT, for coming and taking time today to provide an overview of their area so that you can see the broad range of what the county is purchasing and the different perspectives that we're using to carry out that purchasing. So again, our first forecast is available on the county's website. As I stated, the Department of Equity and Inclusion is a new department that was created at the end of May of this year. It's just approximately 6 weeks old. So at this point, we are still creating a lot of the infrastructure to our website. So we're still using, for the posting of the forecast, is still on the former Office of Procurement and Diversity's website. The Office of Procurement and Diversity was divided as part of that creation of the Department of Equity and Inclusion. There was the creation of the Department of Purchasing. As I stated, both of those two new departments are started as a base from the Office of Procurement and Diversity. So we're still sharing those websites. The new website should be rolled out within the next couple of weeks. However, the forecast is available on the Office of Procurement and Diversity's website. When you go to the county homepage, along the blue ribbon, there's the forecast. When you click on the forecast or enter the direct link listed here, you will be taken to the page that's visible. Within the middle of the page, there's where you can download the Excel spreadsheet to get the actual forecast. Again, that forecast will be updated twice a year, semi-annually. A new forecast will be coming out January 1st, and the next one will be July 1st. So every year, the new version will be posted on January 1st and July 1st. The columns of the spreadsheets, which I will show after this, is that the content of that spreadsheet includes the primary department, which is basically the name of the overall department and agency. However, there's also a second column named Department More Specific, because there are larger departments that are comprised of several smaller departments. You heard from one today, that was the Department of Health and Human Services. They have several smaller departments, which in reality are also large departments. But that's a very large organization. So again, the Department More Specific is to help you further fine tune if there's a specific sub-department. For example, with the fiscal offices, that is one large department that is also comprised of several small departments. For instance, the Department of Purchasing, my department, the Department of Equity and Inclusion, the Office of Budget and Management would be under the fiscal office, which is also Treasurer's office would be under the fiscal office. So under the Department More Specific, that's the point of that second column. Then there's there's a column titled Brief Description, which is basically a brief summary of the goods and services being procured. We also provide the estimated amount. It's a cost range, again, because we have an estimate of what we think it's going to cost. However, we're going through a procurement process, so we're going to find out when we actually advertise and solicit for those proposals, bids, and RFQs and negotiate a contract, what the actual price is. So the estimated amount is our estimate of the cost range for that particular goods and services. We also list the anticipated solicitation period. That's by calendar year and quarter. Again, this is our forecast. This is our purchasing plan. So again, we're giving you the time period when we feel we will be advertising for actual bids, proposals, and qualifications for those items. The current forecast goes from July 1st of 2021 to June 30th of 2023. We do have some that go beyond that, and those are listed in the category of 2023 third quarter and beyond. The forecast is at least for a 24-month period. We also have a column that provides information on our length of performance. Some items are going to be a one-time purchase. Some items might be for less than 1 year, 6-month contract, purchase of quantity of goods that we think will last us 6 months, or it could be a 1-year contract, 2-year contract, 3-year contract, and so on. So we provide our anticipated length of performance period for that goods or services. We also provide information on the procurement method. RFB stands for request for bids, RFP request for proposals, RFQ request for qualifications. We also list our informal purchases, which are purchases that are estimated to cost less than $50,000, and those are usually procured using an informal bid, RFP, or RFQ. So we try to provide an idea to you, the audience, on what procurement method we feel we'll use to select the vendor for that particular goods or services. Also, we have a column where we tell you whether or not we've made a preliminary determination as to whether that good or service will be acquired using this Small Business Set-Aside program. That is the program where small county certified small businesses compete against each other for that contract award. Again, because we want to make sure when that advertisement actually occurs, that the procurement is going to be competitive, that the listing that we have is our preliminary determination. However, when that item is actually ready to be advertised, we will reevaluate to make sure that the environment is still consistent, that that is a good opportunity for a small business set aside. And finally, we just have an overall category of what goods and services are being procured. Is it a construction? Is it professional services, which typically deals with engineering or architect or accounting? Is it goods and services? Is it a supplier contract? Again, just because there's 30+ departments, and you may not know what department the good or service is under, and you're trying to filter through, you might start with that category as a way to filter through the Excel spreadsheet to determine what items and transactions might be applicable to your business. Before I go into the tips, I'm going to briefly share the actual spreadsheet, just so you can get a visual on the spreadsheet. 1 second. Okay, so when you go to the page that has the forecast on the Office of Procurement and Diversity spreadsheet, website, there's going to be a blue ribbon that says forecast. You'll click on that, and on that page, you'll be able to download the spreadsheet. When you download the spreadsheet, you'll open to Excel spreadsheet that can be manipulated. Each of the columns that I just briefly detailed, you can click on the column and you can sort by department. And for each column, you'll be able to sort or filter by the different information that's within that column. For instance, if you were wanting to look under the estimated amount, you'll be able to sort by the different categories. If you're looking for contracts 0 to 5,000 or purchases over 5 million, again, that's the information that you'll be able to sort for each column. You can, another example is going to the procurement method. You can sort if you're looking for construction, bids for construction, or if you're looking for informal RFPs and RFQs. Again, you can go to each of the different column heads and filter through the column for the information that you feel is applicable or of interest to you. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. I just wanted to show you the spreadsheet. Okay, so now that we have the forecast of what we plan to purchase, you've also heard from 2 of our larger purchasing departments on their procurement profile. What do you do with this information? How can you use this information to pursue for business opportunities with the counties? First, as I stated, you will want to download the spreadsheet and review and sort and filter through the information to determine opportunities that match the goods and services your business provides. Again, it's yours. Once you download it, it can be manipulated by you, your agency, your entity to determine and focus on the areas that are of interest for your company. In addition, the next recommendation is that you register with the Cuyahoga County Supplier Portal System. As I mentioned earlier, Cuyahoga County is using the N4 system for its procurement system and also for a variety of other systems we've implemented and in the process of still implementing other components of this ERP system, but the procurement modules have all been fully implemented. The Supplier Portal System, when you go and register, I would recommend that you make sure that you register in the supplier portal. On the county's website, there are a lot of tools and resources. There are training videos. There is a training guide. There's a quick start guide. There's also, if you need additional assistance, you can call the Office of Procurement and Diversity at 443-7200. Again, that information is on the training guides if you need further assistance with how to register in the supplier portal system. When you're in there registering, you want to make sure that you take the time to select all applicable NIGP codes. That's the National Institute of Government Purchasing. Those are the codes that are used to categorize the different goods and services. So you want to make sure you select all applicable NIGP codes for your goods and services. I also recommend that you select more broad, be more conservative. Pick more that if it's a gray area, select it. What happens is that internally, when departments go to advertise for an event or provide a good, and they're looking to see what vendors might be available for those goods and services, they select NIGP codes. What the system does is that when it's time to advertise and provide notices on those goods and services, the system will look through the system of businesses that have registered under those codes to develop a list of vendors that say that they provide those goods and services. That's why I always recommend that companies select broader or gray areas. If you're not sure, it's better to select and realize when you get notices that it's not applicable. It's better to do that than to not select the NIGP code and then miss notification about an opportunity. Also, I recommend that when you select and enter your primary contacts for the system, that you make sure that you keep that notification and contact information up to date. Because again, when the system goes in and matches the goods and services that the county departments have entered by NIGP codes with the vendors that have selected or entered that they provide those goods or services, when there's a match and those vendors are notified, they're going to be notified using the contact information, the emails that's entered by that company. So again, you want to make sure that if there's changeover in your company, that you make sure you go back in and register, make sure you're in your registration to make sure that it is updated with the primary contacts. Also, as part of that, make sure when you do your registration, there's an opportunity. We know that there's passwords for various different, almost right now, because of the use of technology, you're probably keeping track of 50 plus passwords. As part of the system, there are security questions as part of the registration that you answer, so that if you forget your password for that particular registration, by answering those security questions, you're able to register. So please make sure that when you register, that you answer the security questions for that information. So again, the key with registering in the Enforce Supplier Portal system, make sure you answer the security questions so that if you forget your password, you can reset the password on your own. Second, you also want to make sure that you take the time to select all applicable NIGP codes. And again, I recommend that you select, if there are any that you're kind of wondering, is this applicable? I would select it because it's always better to receive more information about opportunities and realize that you're not interested in those opportunities than for you to not get notifications about opportunities. So again, make sure you select all applicable NIGP codes, and also make sure that you keep your primary contact information accurate and up to date. Secondly, the Enforce system being a supplier means that you'll be able to respond electronically in the system to any bids, proposals, and RFPs and RFQs that are issued by Cuyahoga County. In addition to posting in the supplier portal, we also will post opportunities on the county website. So while you're looking at the forecast and it gives you a year and a calendar quarter for when that opportunity will be ready to be advertised, you also want to make sure that within that time period that you are checking the county's website in addition, to make sure that you are aware of all the opportunities that are available for your business to pursue. Also, the information on the forecast gives you advance notice so you can start preparing to submit bids and proposals in response. As I stated, one of the executive orders was making that the posting period be 30 days minimum when feasible. However, that's still 30 days. And unless you find out about it on day one, you may not that you still only have 30 days. And if you find out after day one, you have less than 30 days. So again, keep in mind that for formal bids, RFPs, our goal will be to post for 30 days minimum. However, that's where, again, as I mentioned, there may be time delays or requirements where we might have to post for later if it's not feasible. But our goal will be to post for 30 days minimum formal bids, RFPs, and RFQs. Now, for purchases under 50,000, the minimum posting period is 8 hours. So again, that is why you want to use that advance notice and know that anything that's labeled as informal RFB and RFP or RFQ, there's a minimum 8-hour posting, or it may be any time over 8 hours. So it might be 2 days, it might be 5 days. The time period is set by the department, as long as there's a minimum of 8 hours, because those are the smaller purchases and does not trigger the formal competitive bidding requirements. So again, that's the advantage of looking at the forecast. Any of those items that have that informal RFB, RFP, and RFQ as the procurement process, please note that those may only advertise for 8 hours or some at a minimum at 8 hours, but it might be more than likely a day or so for those on posting. But plan only guarantee is for the 8 hours minimum. So again, you want to make sure that you're planning in advance, make sure you're monitoring the website so that you know when it actually posts. Informals, RFBs, and RFQs typically are only advertised in the Infor Supplier portal. They will not typically be on the purchasing website as far as advertising. They'll be, because they're under 50,000 purchases, they're only required to do posting in the Infor Supplier portal. So that's where your registration is key. And for formal bids, RFPs and RFQs, they will be posted in the Infor Supplier portal system and on this county's purchasing website. And also, depending upon the item, the department may choose to advertise in a paper of general circulation, which is generally for our region, the plain dealer. In addition, use the information to determine if you want to team with other businesses and start reaching out now to potential partners. So again, if an item, you see a business opportunity on a listing, but maybe you feel that it's too large or you want to team with another entity, now is the time to start researching what partners or entities you might want to team up with to submit a bid or proposal for that item. So again, the forecast is our plan for what we are looking to purchase within the next 24-month period. We're hoping with that information, then that advance notice, that entities, businesses that have not usually participated in our procurement process, participate in our process. We want our existing vendors to also know what we're planning to purchase. So again, they have advance notice also on how to, what we're planning to purchase, and can also make sure we have a more competitive process and that we're aware of all the opportunities and all the businesses and goods and services, the great vendors that are available to provide goods and services, so that we can make sure that we provide the best value to the department and our agency, so we can get the best opportunities to fulfill our mission and goals. I also wanted to take the opportunity to show you a few items that are available on the website as it relates to the procurement process. Thanks for joining. We're a little bit over, but I did want to quickly show you that, again, when you go to the supplier portals, the procurement and diversity, and want to find out how to be registered in the supplier portal, there's a link on the Office of Procurement and Diversity's website. That link will bring you to the, you click for that registration, that will bring you to the, it'll bring up the Infor Supplier portal. Do not get confused by the anonymous. That just means that you have not registered, or you need to sign in. So if you haven't, if you've already registered, when it comes up with anonymous, you just need to sign in. If you're new to the site, you just need to create and register to the system. We also have, if you're interested in becoming a county certified small business, minority business, or women business, the applications are available on the website also. In addition, if you're in the midst of trying to figure out who do you want to partner with, and you're trying, or if you're preparing a response to an RFP and RFQ, and you're looking to see who's certified with the county, there's a listing of county certified small businesses, minority businesses, and WB women-owned businesses that are available on the website. You can search by category services and subcategory, or you can even put in a keyword, they can be searched by company name. A keyword could be, if you're looking for asphalt, if you're looking for technology, you can search by those keywords to get a listing of vendors that are available and that are county certified SBEs, MBEs, or WBEs. In addition, you can find out what notices are available, what are we currently advertising for, and also you can find out what awards have already been made if you're looking for the status update on an item that you submitted a proposal to. And finally, in general, if you want to find out what the county's been purchasing, that information is also available. So now we have the forecast, which is what we plan to purchase. We have information on what we have purchased, and also the previous slides show we have information on what's currently being advertised. First I want to thank you all for joining today. This is being streamed live on YouTube, so that for those who were not able to watch it live are able to watch it later. So please share it with others who maybe were not able to watch it while it was occurring, but also if you feel the information would be valuable to them, please let them know that it is available on the Cuyahoga County website on YouTube. So thank you. I want to also thank the Department of Information Technology, Andy Moles, the Chief Technology Officer, and also Department of Health and Human Services, Director Merriman, and Paul Porter, Administrator with the Administration of Contracts and Performance. Thank you both for providing information on your department's profile. Hopefully this information has been useful and will be useful for how to use the contracting and purchasing forecast for pursuing business opportunities. Thank you.